Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just the first announcement that inshallah tomorrow there will be maqtal of Ashura after Salah at 1:30 p.m. and we will also have a Sham Ghriban session after Maghrib Salah as well. Can we please start the lecture by reciting a Surah Al-Fatiha for all the beloved and blessed believers related to our families and those who are not related to our families as well, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين يا حبيب الله العالمين صلى الله عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا سيد الوسيين يا علي بن أبي طالب السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا أبو محمد الحسن بن علي المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Inshallah, all together let us take our hearts to Karbala on this blessed night. Assalamu ala al-Husayn وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Holy Quran, the Quran in which Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam mentions to the enemy, give us one more day. We don't want to fight on the 9th of Muharram. Give us one more day. Why, Ya Aba Abdullah? So that we can recite Quran and we can worship our Lord. To the extent where the hadith would say that we could hear, the narrators would say we could hear the humming of bees because of the Quran that the companions and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam were reading. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the verse in Surah Al Imran, verse number 14, beautiful for people is the love of that which they desire, of women and sons, headed up sums of gold and silver, fine braided horses, the cattle, and tiled land. This is the enjoyment of the worldly life, but Allah has with him the best return. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. This whole entire lecture series has been based around the theme of self-reflection, the idea that we must take time out of our lives to really self-reflect and think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we are busy with our jobs or with entertainment or whatever that is, that we must always remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at every point. For Allah says He is closer to you than your jugular vein. So it's not something which Allah has given us as an impossible task. The idea of self-reflection so that you can understand this life better. So for your own soul, that you can feel more satisfied with this world and more happy and really understand and appreciate the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For this final lecture, the topic is to really assess and understand the pull of this world, the dunya from the akhirah, and how we can really use aspects, really use tips from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through the Holy Quran and through the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam, to really come up with methods in which we can shift ourselves away from the dunya towards the akhirah. Now obviously, the first point to mention is that people often struggle. They often struggle with picking the akhirah over the dunya, based on maybe one aspect of it would be that we cannot physically see what we're going to get in the akhirah. Cannot physically see it. However, in this world, one may say that I know that if I work hard and get a high salary, I know I've seen millionaires, I've seen how they live, I've seen the houses in front of me, I've seen the cars in front of me, and those are things which are tangible goods which I know I will receive if I work hard for this world. However, one may come and say, for the akhirah, we don't really know what is going to happen, etc. And this is really based upon the foundational element of doubt, that we may question whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even exists at one point, and we may even question, is the religion of Islam even correct? And that's why the first lecture of this series was really there to try and give us a reminder of why we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place, and why Islam is the religion of Allah and why we must follow it. So these feelings arise from doubt, and you'll even see some individuals, they may start off by saying maybe there is, maybe there isn't something after the world. Then they will go into a spiral of chaos, sin after sin after sin, to the end in which they will be hoping on their deathbed. Some of them say that I really hope there's no next world, so then I don't have to be responsible for my sins. So to conquer this element, this fear that people may have, is to really remind ourselves of Islam, remind ourselves why are the reasons we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place. Because as we can see from a hadith from Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, where it mentions if this world is transient, then why be satisfied with it? The same way, if you were going on a flight and there was a 6-hour, 7-hour stopover somewhere, you're in transit, it's a transient lounge you're in, are you going to spend time there, build a house there? Are you going to buy a TV there? Or are you just going to use it as a transient lounge to get to your next destination? This is how the Imam explains this world, that it's a transient world. And as we mentioned in the verse which opened up this whole topic, beautiful for people is the love of that which they desire, of women and sons, heaped up sums of gold and silver, fine branded horses and cattle and tiled land. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning, for the people of that time, this is everything that they wanted. This is the perfect value of what a human being can have. The same way today it would be to have massive houses, a great swimming pool, and a sauna inside your house, having the best cars, having the best garage, having a house right next to the beach. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the people, telling us, that beautiful for people is the love of that which they desire. It's beautiful for them. That is the enjoyment of the worldly life. Allah is speaking about this world. But Allah has with Him the best return. Meaning that whatever you think that you can get from this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning that what you can get from Allah in the next world is far better. It's the best return. No matter what your imagination is of what you can get, Allah is explaining it. With Allah is the best return. So the first part of my lecture, I want to really talk about the pulling of this world. And interestingly, I saw an article from 2019 in the Business Insider. And the Business Insider obviously is a very popular you could say it's kind of a news source for business and things like this. They released an article saying about how casinos trick people into coming to them and playing and wasting their money, etc. And it's really interesting, and I thought I'd use this example and really tell you the bullet points of what it mentions, to really use it as a metaphor, so that we can look at the way that people because even a non-Muslim will come to you and say, yes, a casino is something which, they play all kinds of tricks on you to carry on playing and playing and playing until you waste your money and you become reliant on the casino. So something that is obvious to us, and then use those examples to really understand how it is in our lives that we have casinos all around us. Maybe not in the form of a literal casino, but maybe in the form of other advertising campaigns or other conglomerates. The first thing it mentioned, that in a casino, there's no windows, there's no clock. And the reason for this is because if there were windows, then people would be able to see that time is passing. They'll be able to see the light intensity from when they arrived to when they leave. It's got darker. They may feel like I need to go home now, but they don't have windows, so people don't feel this way. They don't have a clock as well, so people don't feel like I'm wasting my time. They have no idea of time, and as they say, time flies when you're having fun. They want time to fly, fly, fly until they're there forever, until they've lost all their money. The next thing they say is that the toilets are right at the back. So if you want to go to the bathroom, you have to go through this maze. And the floor plan of a casino is that you have to get to the toilet, or a cashier, you have to go around every single game to get there. Why? So that you get distracted by all these games around you, and you think, maybe after I come to the toilet, I'm going to play that game. They also mentioned that the carpets are purposely ugly carpets. They get patterns which are disgusting. For a reason, they purposely do this, so that you're never looking at the floor, you're always looking up. You're always looking at the games around you. What can you play with? They also mention that they pump extra oxygen in the air. Extra oxygen. And some believe that when you have excess oxygen in the air, that it stops you from being tired. It makes you more alert. It makes you, and they say that some people believe that when you yawn, for example, the reason you yawn is because you're having a lack of oxygen. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's one of the theories. Another thing they use is music. They use music, as I mentioned in the Q&A a few nights ago, that music is used to really control the behavior. They really fine-tune the music from their studies. They use the type of music which can really make the individual, the customer, really feel like they're having the biggest adventure of their lifetime. That what they're doing, they should do it more and more, because it creates more and more of a hype. It keeps them more and more in that moment. So this is how a casino works. The first thing they try and do is make you lose track of time. The same way. In our daily lives, how many times do we lose track of time? There's sometimes, for example, those people who they work in a certain company, or they work for this X amount of years, and then they say, oh wow, it feels like I was just here yesterday. I started just yesterday. That we lose track of time, where 5, 10, 15 years can go by, and you think, wow, that was so quick. That happened so quickly. And the reason this may be that we feel this way is because the schedule of our lives is such that we're told to work most of the time. Work from, let's say, 9 to 5. As a bare minimum, 9 to 5. And then after that, you maybe have to have social events with your colleagues, etc. After that, you get home. You take the train. It takes another hour. By the time you're home, let's say it's 7, 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, then you maybe have your dinner. So that's until 9. Maybe you watch a bit more TV, 9 to 10. 10 o'clock, you tuck your kids in. You go to sleep. The next day starts. You've had not a single minute of self-reflection. And this is the beauty of this Islam, where you'll see a lot in the media where people are trying to paint Islam as a religion of the Dark Ages, or any religion for that aspect. They'll say it's a religion of the Dark Ages. That these are the beliefs that people had 1,000 years ago, and people need to change their beliefs. The reason why they say these things is because they know that Islam is a religion where it mentions that you must make time 5 times in your day, 5 periods of time in your day to have self-reflection, to give you that power over your life, that you have that identity. The same way a casino tries to make you not think about time, so that time passes, so that you lose that ability to understand how you're using your life. The same way that certain companies will try and sell you their products. Buy this gym membership, buy this Netflix membership, do this, do that, on Saturday, Sunday, buy a season ticket for a football club. When it's the summertime and the Premier League is finished, what is it? It's the World Cup, it's the Euros. There's always something or the other to keep us entertained. Which is why it's an amazing theory brought up that the reason why entertainment is there in the first place is so that the human beings don't get themselves concerned about oppression. And you'll see this around the world today. Why is it Saudi Arabia are having a boxing match with Anthony Joshua? When they cut up individuals who come to the embassy into pieces and put them into suitcases, why are they doing this? Why is it, for example, Saudi Arabia are inviting pop bands from South Korea to their country? Why is it Saudi Arabia are trying to buy football clubs in the Premier League? That aspect of entertainment. To make people believe or make them satisfied in a way so they don't care about the other issues. So the first aspect we speak about is time, how we spend our time. Where time may fly because we don't have that aspect of self-reflection, we don't have that time to think because we're constantly being entertained by something or the other, whether it be work, whether it be the entertainment aspect, which are not bad things. Of course, I mentioned Islam in the workplace. You must work, you have to provide for your family. Going to the gym is not a bad thing as well. You must take care of yourself. You must be healthy. Watching Netflix, for example, on its own is not a bad thing as well. Maybe you need that time to have with your family, with your partner, for example, for that entertainment. However, Islam mentions to make at least 5 times in your day to have a time of self-reflection. Because if we didn't have Islam telling us this, would we really do these things? Or would we just try and find those moments and fill them up with some other form of entertainment? Something else which causes all that dopamine rush to happen in your head. Because that's the world we live in today. Even with the aspect of video games as well. That's the first thing. Time is something which is abused by that around you, everything around you, so that you forget about the time. The next aspect is, for example, the way the casino gets you. If you want to go to the toilet, you have to go through all these games to get there. The same way, if you want to watch a video on YouTube, maybe this video, I'm not sure, I didn't put monetization on. But other videos I've seen that to watch that video, you have to go through a certain path where you look at so many adverts, so much advertisements, and some of them are completely irrelevant to the video. I saw one video which was a majlis, and the advertisement was a poker ad saying play this poker, etc. So sometimes you have adverts everywhere. If you want to go anywhere, you have to watch an ad, 15-second ad, 20-second ad. That's the payment you must pay. So the reason I gave the example of the casino is so that for you to understand something obvious and something abstract. Where our life is like we're in a casino itself. Everywhere we look, there's an advertisement going on, telling us to do this or that. So this is what the world, this is one aspect of the way that the world pulls you. And everything we spoke about, this whole 10 days was there to show you that this world uses different forms. People use different forms to try and control your free will. Try and control your individuality. Through, for example, maybe music as well. They may use music for you to lose sense of what you think, or to cause certain reactions in your body. They may sell you, for example, certain drinks of alcohol. The reason why alcohol is so legal now, when it has the most detrimental effects on the human being, is because people are so obsessed with it now. It will be very difficult to stop everyone from drinking alcohol in, for example, a Western country. But the fact that it's used, for example, in a football match, what is used the most? Alcohol, betting, all these games of entertainment are used to try and keep the individual excited, be entertained, so that they don't have control over their lives, and the conglomerate would have control over their lives, to control their identity. Islam is saying no to that, no. Islam is saying, first of all, you can't do alcohol. Second of all, you can't do gambling. Third of all, you must spend 5 times, at least 5 times a day doing salah. And in that salah, it must be something where you don't approach arrogantly. For the Quran says, the one who approaches my worship arrogantly, for them is the hellfire. That the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not something to be taken lightly. It's something where you can really communicate with Allah. See it as something where you're speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And who else would you want to speak to? Sometimes we have when you're at school and someone says, okay, the Prime Minister is coming to school today, or the MP is coming to school. Everyone gets in a line, they all dress up, especially wear the best suit, come to assembly, meet the Prime Minister. In Salah, you're not meeting the Prime Minister, you're meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 5 times a day. 5 times a day. And this is why Imam Hussein alayhi salam asked for an extra night on the day of Ashura, on the night of Ashura, so that he can worship Allah, so he can have that beauty of communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and allow his companions to also have this mercy, have this barakah. We see in the Holy Quran, Surah Luqman, verse 33. O mankind, fear your Lord and fear a day when no father will avail his son, nor will a son avail his father at all. Indeed, the promise of Allah is truth. So let not the worldly life delude you, and be not deceived about Allah by the deceiver. Same way I mentioned earlier about the idea where we may have about the fact that when it comes to the afterlife we can't see it, and the reason this happens is through deceptions, because we don't have that self-reflection. We may forget the reason we believe in the religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Holy Quran, do not be deceived about Allah by the deceiver. So let not the worldly life delude you. This is exactly the trick, the trap in which many of us, myself, you, your family, your brothers, your sisters, everyone can fall into this trap. Nobody is immune from this trap. Nobody. Until the moment that you pass away, the moment that you die, you're not immune to this trap. There's always something in this world, a deceiver, which may try and deceive you about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see in Surah Yunus, verse 7 to 8. Allah mentions, indeed those who do not expect to encounter us, expect to encounter Allah, and who are pleased with the life of this world and satisfied with it, and those who are oblivious of our signs, it is they whose refuge shall be the fire because of what they used to earn. Again, mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning that those of you who, because of your negligence to the religion, your negligence to think about Allah, your negligence to that self-reflection, where you feel and remember that Allah mentions that, O mankind, I have created you but to worship me. If you are negligent to this and you are satisfied and pleased with this world, and those who are oblivious to our signs, you're oblivious, you don't see the next world coming, it is they whose refuge shall be the hellfire because of what they used to earn. Surah Yunus. In another verse in Holy Quran, Surah Nazi'at, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, as for him who was rebellious and performed the life of this world, his refuge will indeed be hell. Where am I going with all of this? We have an example we will get into, and I want you to remember this in your mind, how the gradient between the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was and the companions of Umar ibn Sa'ad, la'natullahi alayhi, and Umar ibn Sa'ad himself. These verses are practically speaking about the characteristics of the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the companions of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Where on one hand you have individuals who are remembering Allah's signs. You have an individual who's Wahhab, for example, who sees a transit place. That don't put all your eggs, for example, in this world, put your eggs in the basket of the next world. Now the hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the price for paradise is abstention from the world. Having abstinence of the world. Where you may see that there is something that you can gain in this world and you don't have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you take that. But the price for getting into Jannah is refusing something because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to refuse it. That every decision that you make, every decision that you have is related to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs you to do, the actions that Allah instructs you to do. Where, for example, if I give you an example, where we can see that when it comes to a job, let's say you have a job, you're offered a job, and the reason you take this job is not because you remember Allah mentioning for you to look after your family and provide a living, and Allah mentioning that you must have a job which serves society. You're thinking, I'm going to take this job so I can have a higher salary, buy a bigger house, buy that car I saw in the showroom, buy this or buy that, to a point where you may forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the future. This may become a habit where, for example, you may take the next job that you take, maybe a job in gambling, or maybe a job in selling cigarettes or alcohol, maybe a job working for a defense system or a defense contractor of a country, which causes havoc upon the Islamic community or the Islamic society. Where if you don't have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the center of your decisions, you don't consult Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your decisions, then you'll be someone who, as Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions, the price for paradise is being abstinent of this world. Where if you see an opportunity, and it may be good for you in terms of materialistic gain, but it may be bad for you in terms of spiritual growth, or in terms of getting towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is saying, the price for paradise is abstention from this world. In another hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, it mentions, the greatest affliction and source of wretchedness is infatuation in this world. Again, mentioning the similar sort of thing, that those who are infatuated with this world, this is the greatest affliction, the greatest source of wretchedness. Where you'll even see, for example, certain people who are the richest of people when it comes to giving charity or giving money away. There are certain individuals, I don't want to mention them as they've passed away now, that when it came to asking them for money to give to charity, they'd be like, no, I don't want to give any money. And there's certain individuals who don't have the most wealth, for example. They don't have so much, yet they'll be the most giving when it comes to charity. The proportion that they'll give compared to someone who has all the wealth in the world. And you'll see this a lot. I'm sure you know examples of this yourself. Another hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, it mentions, the people on that day will be of different classes and stations. Some of them will be given an easy account and return to their people happy. Some of them will enter paradise without giving an account, for they had nothing to do with the matters of the worldly life. For indeed the account there is for those who entangle themselves with them, the worldly affairs here. And some of them will be asked to account for every speck and spot, and will be made to suffer the punishment of the blaze. Again, speaking about whatever we do, whatever attachment we have on this world, we will be accountable for it. If I have an attachment, for example, to providing for my family, I'll be accountable for it. The same way, that's not something negative, but it's something to take into account. That everything you do, every possession that you have, you will be accountable for it on the day of Qiyamah, inshallah. We see in Al-Kafi, a hadith from Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, where he mentions the world is of two types. That which causes one to attain success for the hereafter, and that which is cursed. Again, showing that you may use this world to worship Allah, where, for example, you need this world, you need the crops, you need all these things to serve society in order to serve Allah. You need this world to have a place to worship, to build a mosque. What you do with this world is of two matters. You can either go down the route which will get you something materialistically, or you can go down the route which will get you something of a higher station in Jannah. As Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam says, the world is of two types, that which causes one to attain success in the hereafter, and that which is cursed. We see in another hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam, where he mentions, love of the world corrupts the intellect, it deafens the heart from hearing wisdom, and it brings about a painful chastisement. Again, mentioning that the love of the world, and we've seen it firsthand, it deafens the heart from hearing wisdom. Where if you're someone who's constantly thinking about the stock market, or constantly thinking about how you're going to make your next £1,000,000, you go to the masjid, you listen to the lecture, and the whole time you're looking at your app. Or the whole time you're thinking, what am I going to do in my meeting tomorrow? How am I going to address this issue I have at work, for example? How am I going to get the next thing in materialism, the next car, etc.? And it brings you to a point where it prevents you, it deafens the heart from hearing wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it brings about a painful chastisement. Another hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he mentions the one who attaches his heart to this world has attached his heart to three things: endless worry, false expectation, and an unattainable hope. What a beautiful hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, where you can see, for example, someone who's continuously worried about the wealth that they have. They're worried about if that wealth will go down. They're constantly looking at the stock market, especially during the coronavirus pandemic, thinking, oh my God, that wealth I had is going to go down. That's what the endless worry is. where you're continuously worried, what is going to happen to my possessions? Because that's all you own. This is the wealth that you own. You have this endless worry because this is your wealth. Whereas the wealth of someone who does not have the possession that they have, they don't say the most important possession they have is materialistic things. The most important possession they have is the connection with Allah. Is someone will never have to worry, have endless worry about whether that can be taken away, because that's something in which they are in control of with their free will. It's something that they can continuously work to perfect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is why Prophet Isa alayhi salam, the hadith mentions that he would say, my pillow is a stone, my blanket is the wind, my food is the barley, yet there's no one more wealthy than I. Because Prophet Isa alayhi salam was an individual who never had, for example, materialistic things. However, the thing he had, which was the most important thing, was a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is why he mentions wealth is not in those things which are for this material world, but wealth are for those things. That is your communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the best kind of wealth. That's endless worry. False expectation. For example, you have countries having certain slogans like, this is the land of the free, home of the brave. These are slogans there to make you feel like you have hope of being free one day. To give you that false hope, that false expectation, and unattainable hope. For example, in a lottery, where you buy a £1, £2 ticket, and you get this hope that you get £1 million. This is unattainable hope. It will never happen, and this is why it's haram. This world is things in which if you attach your heart to this world, you've attached your heart to three things. Endless worry, false expectation, and unattainable hope. Where if you attach your heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you will never have any of these problems. And these 10 lectures we spoke about how we can stop all the issues, many issues which happen in our life, if we put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the center of our universe, inshaAllah. We see in another hadith from Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, where he mentions when he was asked about the quality of the believer, a beautiful hadith. He said he manages to still his hunger without pursuit of food. He manages to still the hunger without the pursuit of food. The same way we do, for example, fasting in Ramadan. We manage, it gives us an opportunity to really, control our hunger and not feel like we always have to pursue food. The Imam is speaking about the believer who can do this on a regular basis, i.e. the one who fasts on a regular basis and really retrains their body at every opportunity that they get. He is well prepared for his death. Speaking about death, because brothers and sisters, death is the greatest treatment for this love of the dunya. Thinking about death. He is well prepared for his death. And wary of his life in this world. He's wary of everything. He owns everything he's attained in this world. But to remember the ultimate destination, which is the death of the human being. That may be today or tomorrow or in 10 years or in 50 years or in 200 years. There will be a time where I will die and that I will be accountable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which is why there is a lot of barakah in reaching and going to the graveyards. In thinking about those who have died and remembering that. Because brothers and sisters, no matter what you have today, on the day that you die, you will be thinking, what was the point of all of it? What was the point of all of it? Was this something that could bring me closer to Allah? Or was this something that I just got for this transit? I just attained for this transit. And we have great examples of these individuals who picked this dunya over the akhirah. When we come to the camp of Umar ibn Sa'ad, we have the example of Umar ibn Sa'ad himself, la'natullahi alayh, where you had Umar ibn Sa'ad. When Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he came to Umar ibn Sa'ad. He called Umar ibn Sa'ad the night, the day before Ashura, on this day you could say. He called him to his tent and he said to him, Ya Umar ibn Sa'ad, why don't you join us? Subhanallah. Why are you fighting in this way? Do you not know who I am? Are you going to kill me knowing who I am? Umar ibn Sa'ad says, I know who you are, Ya Abu Abdullah. And we see in another example from Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, when he asked Umar ibn Sa'ad, before he joined the camp of Imam al-Hussein, he went to Umar ibn Sa'ad and said, are you really going to kill this man? Are you really going to fight him? Umar ibn Sa'ad said, if it was, and Hur said to him, are you not satisfied with who he is? Is that not enough for you? Umar ibn Sa'ad replied and said, if it was up to me, I would be satisfied. but it's up to the governor, it's up to Ibn Ziyad, and he's asked me to kill him, therefore I'm going to kill him. It's not my choice. Subhanallah. The man knows himself what he's doing is wrong, but why does he still do it? Because he's in love with the dunya. The pull of this world is too great. And we see the conversation with Imam al-Hussein, a perfect explanation of why this individual did this. So Umar ibn Sa'd, he meets with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. As he meets with Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Hussein asks him. He says, you know who I am, you're still going to fight me? He said, yes, Ya Abu Abdullah, I can fight you. He said, why don't you join me? What are the reasons stopping you from joining me, Ya Umar ibn Sa'd? Omar says to Imam al-Hussein, he says, I have a house, and if I join you, that house will be taken, and I won't have a house anymore. Abu Abdullah alayhi salam says, I will give you a house. I'll give you a house in Jannah. I'll give you one of my own houses for your family to live in. He says, but Ya Abu Abdullah, my livelihood will be crippled. If I join you, my family, my lineage, my descendants, their livelihood will be crippled. That whatever money I'm earning for my livelihood of my family, I will not have it anymore, and they will suffer. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam said, from the livelihood I have, I will take a portion out and give it to you if you join us, Ya Umar ibn Sa'd. Subhanallah. The most evil creation, one of the most evil creations ever, Umar ibn Sa'd, who went to kill Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the leader of the opposition army. Imam al-Hussein is still on the last day trying to guide him. Which is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa would mention that Hussein is the lantern of guidance, and he is the ark of salvation. So then Umar ibn Sa'd says to him, Ya Hussein, there is maybe these two things, you can give me something of yours for them. However, there is one thing that I know that you could never give me. Subhanallah. He's speaking to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He's speaking to the Imam, Sayyid al-Shabab Ahl Jannah, the one who is the youth of the paradise of Jannah. And he's saying to him, you can't give me something, you can't ask Allah for something for me. He says, there's one thing you can never give me that I will get if I fight against you. What is that, Ya Umar? He says that I am being promised the land of Ray, and that's something, Ya Hussein, you could never give me. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam says to him, Ya Umar ibn Sa'd, surely you are lost and you have picked this world over the next world, so may Allah curse you, Ya Umar ibn Sa'd. This concept, this choice of picking this world from the next world is what made an individual the most evil of creation. It's what separated the companions of Imam al-Hussein, which were about 100, let's say 100 people, against a group which some historians say around 30,000 people. What separated the minority, the vast minority, where they were this very small minority, where there were about 100 people from 30,000 people who wanted to kill them. When they all were told about the religion of Islam, me, you, everyone who's watching this, has been told about the religion of Islam. Maybe we say from our tongues that we're Muslim. Yet what was the difference between those who from their tongue they said they were Muslim, those who actually followed Allah, and those who will go to Jannah, against those who disobeyed Allah and have a torment waiting for them in the hellfire? It was picking this world over the next world, picking the dunya over the akhirah. And it was Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi who spotted this, and he decided at that moment that what is going on? I cannot do this anymore. I have to pick the akhirah over the dunya. Which shows to us, brothers and sisters, if you're an individual who has constantly been chasing the good, the bounties of this world and not the next world, there's always an opportunity for you to change. There's always an opportunity for you to change. And this whole lecture series, I hope that I've really showed you and really explained to you that there are how significant and how important it is to self-reflect. Have that self-consciousness. Have that feeling of thinking about the world, thinking about Allah, thinking about the point of your existence. And inshallah, we can take these lessons, and our lessons and our grief is accepted, and Allah supports us the same way. If you go towards Allah, Allah will come running to you. That's what's mentioned in another hadith. So inshallah, we take that time to really self-reflect. And that's the start of this process, because being attached to this world over the next world happens in a process. It's not a quick thing. It happens over a long-term process. After doing many things which cause habits and addictions, and we explained how to get out of those addictions, methods of Islam to get out of those addictions, methods that Islam prescribes to you to have things like cognitive behavioral therapy. We mentioned all these things in which you can really self-reflect and think about your existence and how you can separate yourself from the individual who thinks about the dunya and the individual who thinks about the akhirah. So to summarize this lecture, we mentioned first of all that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in various verses of the Holy Quran that the ones who pick this world and forget the signs of Allah are the ones who will be losers in the hellfire, the same way the camp of Umar ibn Sa'ad were. We also mentioned the example, the obvious example of a casino, what methods they use to try and distract the human being from playing their game and becoming broke and becoming someone who's dependent on a casino. The same way, there's a casino all around us, brothers and sisters. We're in a casino, whether it be a literal casino or an abstract casino. We're somewhere where there are forces, every direction, trying to teach us and tell us and control us what our identity should be, what your happiness should be, what your level of beauty, what your definition of beauty should be, how you should approach the next world by forgetting it, for example. And then we mentioned the various verses of the Holy Quran and the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam mentioning how the price of the akhirah is to let go of the dunya. To let go of those things in the dunya, this is the price of the akhirah. And we know that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was the perfect individual who on the night of Ashura, when he asked his enemies, he asked Umar ibn Sa'ad. He asked Umar ibn Sa'ad, he said to him, give us one more night. Don't fight us yet. We don't need to fight yet. Give us one more night. He said, what do you want for one more night? He said, I want to worship Allah. I want to spend this night in worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he gave him one more night. He gave Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam one more night to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we see that when you're asked, for example, you're commonly asked, what would you do if you had 10 minutes to live, one more day to live, 2 days to live? What would you do with your life? Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is giving us the perfect instruction to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is why today is the night of Ashura. Take some time out in this night to recite Quran. For this Quran is the Quran which Abba Abdullah alayhi salam asked for an extra night so he can recite this Holy Quran. So think about the Holy Quran on this night, inshallah. He asked for the night. When it comes to the night, you see companions. You see Abba Abdullah alayhi salam. You see him on this night. Abba Abdullah has Habib ibn Madahir with him. Everywhere Abba Abdullah goes, he has some bodyguards around him. Ya Abba Abdullah, in 24 hours time, where will those bodyguards be? On this night, the companions of Abba Abdullah are happy together. They are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala together. On tomorrow night, what will happen is that those companions will all be slaughtered and their bodies will be torn to pieces. On this night, you have the daughters of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. The daughters of Abba Abdullah are feeling safe because Abba Abdullah alayhi salam is with them. But tomorrow night, what will happen? You see that instead of Abba Abdullah being there, instead of Abul Fadl al-Abbas being there to protect them, they will have people like Umar ibn Sa'ad and Shimr ibn al-Jawshan attacking them. On this night, Abba Abdullah alayhi salam, he kisses his baby in his cradle. Tomorrow night, that baby will not be in a cradle, it will be in a grave underground. Allahu Akbar. On this night of Ashura, He gathered his companions, he put the light out, and he said to his companions, he said to them, that you do not have to fight for me, oh my companions, that you don't have to give your life for me. There is no obligation for you to give your life for me. But tomorrow there will be a moment when I shout out, Hal min nasirin yansurna, and those who reject my call will be sent to the hellfire. But oh companions, leave tonight so you don't have to hear that call. He says, all I ask for you is to leave with me Aliyun al-Akbar, for this enemy is such that they will kill each and every one of you, even Abdullah al-Radi. As he opens the candle, none of his companions have left. One companion stands up. He says to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, if my body was torn to pieces and was eaten by the wild animals, by God I will still fight for you, Ya Aba Abdullah. Another companion raised up. He said, if I was killed and my body was burnt into ashes, and this happened to me 1,000 times, by God I will never leave you, Ya Aba Abdullah. Then Qasim ibn al-Hasan, he comes to his uncle. He says, you mentioned that we'll all be killed. Can you give me glad tidings that I will be killed in your honor, Ya Aba Abdullah? Aba Abdullah says to him, oh son of my brother, oh Qasim, how do you feel about death? What do you feel about death? He says to him, oh uncle, when it comes to death for you, Ya Aba Abdullah, it is sweeter than the sweetness of the honey. So on the day of Ashura, when all these companions are killed, and the family of Ahlul Bayt are killed, Al-Qasim is killed, Aliyun al-Akbar is killed, all Abul Fadl al-Abbas is killed. Imam al-Hussein goes to the tent where his dead bodies are. He first goes to Aliyun al-Akbar. He first goes to Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan. He lies between them and he feels the first time a sense that he is with his sons. He closes his eyes for a moment. He then rises up. He looks at his companions. He says, oh companions, are there any one of you who can rise up and protect the family of Rasulullah? If any of you do not rise up, then I give you glad tidings that you have entered the Jannah. He then calls out with a sad voice in a moment which is recorded as the most difficult moments on the day of Ashura. He calls out, Ya Habib ibn Madahir, Ya Hur al-Riyahi, Ya Muslim ibn Awsaja, Ya Muslim ibn Aqil, Ya Hilal ibn Nafi, where are you today? He then cries out to the enemy. He calls out to everyone around him, Ala hal min nasirin yansurna liwajahillah, Ala hal min da'abin yadubbu an haramir Rasulullah. Is there anyone who can come and protect the family of Rasulullah? At that point a cry is heard from the cradle of Abdullah al-Radi. A cry is heard from the cradle of his 6-month-old infant Abdullah al-Radi. He asks his sister Zainab, bring me my son Abdullah, for maybe I can get him a drink of water. This 6-month-old infant was thirsty from not having any water. He couldn't have any milk from his mother. The 6-month-old infant was someone who was going to die anyway. Yet what would the Euphrates have given if he gave him a few drops of water? Aba Abdullah says, give me my 6-month-old son. He gets his son, he covers him with his cloak. He grabs the tallest camel they have with him. He goes on top of the camel, he changes his clothes as to show that he is not coming for fighting. He takes off his armor, he puts on his turban, he goes towards the enemy with his son Abdullah al-Radi. They say that as he approached them, the enemy was saying, what is Al-Hussein doing in this moment? We've never seen Al-Hussein act in this way. Al-Hussein, they said, we didn't know what he was covering. Some of us thought he was covering the Quran. Some of us thought he was covering a weapon. Then Imam Al-Hussein releases his cloak and shows the face of Abdullah al-Radi. Allahu Akbar. He shows the face of Abdullah. He then says to the enemy, your fight is against me, but what has this 6-month-old infant done to you? Allahu Akbar. They say the enemy then started fighting amongst one another. One group would say, give the child some water. Another group would say, no, we can't give any of them water. We have been instructed from the emir to not give them any water. So then one camp, they pull out their swords to fight the others, to a point where there is a big argument within the camp of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Umar ibn Sa'ad, Allahu Akbar. Umar ibn Sa'ad, la'natullahi alayhi. What does he do? He says, Harmala, Harmala, oh the one who throws the arrows, oh the best archer of the army, launch an arrow in which you can stop this argument from happening. He says to him, where do you want to hit? Here do you want me to hit? Do you want me to hit the father or do you want me to hit the son? He says, hit the place where this argument would surely stop. So Harmala, he puts the arrow in his arch. Brothers and sisters, this is not a normal arrow. This is a 3-pronged arrow, an arrow used to kill a beast. The Maktal says in some rawaya that as he put it in his arch, he dropped it for a moment. He put it in his arch again, he dropped it again. He put it in his arch again, and he says, when they asked him, why did you do this 3 times? He said, every time I put it in my arch, I saw a woman slapping her head, trying to stop me from throwing this arrow. He puts the arrow in his arch. Allahu Akbar. He launches it in the direction of Aba Abdullah. Think for a moment. How long does it take for an arrow to travel? It takes maybe a few seconds. How did Aba Abdullah feel in those few seconds, seeing the arrow come to his son and not having the ability to stop it? The arrow comes, it goes into the neck of Abdullah al-Radi, where some rawaya says it causes the head of Abdullah al-Radi to separate from his body. The arrow enters the jugular vein of Abdullah, to the point it goes through his neck and goes through the arm of Imam al-Hussein. Allahu Akbar. Imam al-Hussein at this moment was about to die of grief. So what does Allah do to console him? A voice comes from the heaven. It says to him, Imam al-Hussein says, what makes this easier for me is that I know Allah is watching. A voice comes from the heaven saying, Dahu ya Hussein, Dahu, fa inna lahu mardi'uthu jannah. Leave him, O Hussein, leave him, for there is a maid waiting for him in Jannah. Allahu Akbar. Who is the maid waiting for him in Jannah? Is it your mother, O Hussein? Is it Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, who will look after Abdullah al-Radi in the cradle? But will she hold the cradle with one hand as she's holding her broken rib with the other? Ya Ahl al-Bayt. Imam al-Hussein then takes the blood in his hands. He dyes his beard with some of it. He throws it in towards the heavens. And he says to the heavens, he says those famous lines, Wa inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. He says to the heavens, surely we come from Allah and to Him do we return. As he goes back towards the camp, how do you go back to a mother who has lost their child? He takes 7 steps forward and he takes 7 steps back. He goes forward 7 steps and he takes 7 steps back. He does this 7 times. Why, O Hussein, are you doing this? Because Imam al-Hussein knows how difficult it must be for the mother, how difficult it must be for Rubab. How did Rubab lose her son Abdullah Radi, who was 6 months, and later lose her daughter Sukaina, who was 3 years old? She would never have expected this. He takes 7 steps forward, he takes 7 steps back. He goes towards the camp of Abba Abdullah. He goes towards his camp. The women come out, the children come out. Sukaina says, did they give a drink of water to my infant son, brother? Did they give a drink of water to Abdullah Radi? Imam al-Hussein, he takes the body of Abdullah and he digs a small grave for him. At the back of the tent he digs a grave to bury Abdullah Radi in this grave. Allahu Akbar. After Imam al-Hussein was killed, there were those individuals in Umar ibn Sa'd's camp who said, we need to sever the heads of everybody of the companions of Imam al-Hussein so that we can get a reward. There was one tribe who never had a head. Allahu Akbar. So they said, how can we get a head? One individual says, I saw Hussein digging a grave for his 6-month-old infant behind the tent. He says, I was digging a grave for this 6-month-old infant. So if you go to that grave, I'm sure you'll be able to get a head. They start digging the grave with their swords till they finally reach the body of Abdullah Radi. Abdullah's body was struck with the arrow for the first time. For the second time, he was struck with the swords of the enemy when they were trying to get his head. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وإنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. اللهم الآن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لأن الأسابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وطابت على قتله اللهم لأنهم جميعا. Allahu Akbar. Put your hands up with the tears in your eyes. This is the night before Ashura, and say the dua that will answer all du'as. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyik al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala abaih في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وذليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.